In this tutorial, we will review how I captured the sun setting behind the Mohonk Tower. This is the raw time-lapse footage of the sun setting behind the tower. As you can see, I had to adjust my exposure twice, but with some careful editing I was able to save the time-lapse. Focusing on the image I was trying to capture, you can see I pretty much nailed it. The benefits of shooting a time-lapse instead of a single image are the additional shots you can create, such as multiple suns setting in sequence, or a blend of all the suns together. Either way, the single image of the sun behind the tower is pretty compelling. At the end of this tutorial, you will understand how to create multiple compelling images from a sequence. The Mohonk Tower is seated atop a small ridge. It can be seen from my house and from Overlook Mountain, as shown in this image. So far, it's taken me 4 failed attempts, over 3 years, to capture these images. The first time was in April of 2021. I set up outside Ackerd, about 6.5 miles away. I was trying to line up the moon with the tower, but I was off by a degree or so. The second and third time were back-to-back days in October of 2022, trying to line up the sun with the tower. This was when I learned if it's the sun, you will need a solar filter. The fourth time was May of 2023. We had substantial wildfire smoke from Canada that hazed over the sun and you could see sunspots. But the sun faded out before it reached the tower. A few days later, I attempted the same shot with clearer skies. I set up on South Street, north of the Apple Greens golf course. I used my 600mm lens, with a solar filter and a time shutter release. I shot 181 frames to create this sequence. To show you how I created the images, we will start by importing the raw images into Lightroom. I find the folder where they are stored. I check the sequence to make sure I have all the shots included. Once loaded, the first thing I need to correct is the exposure of my images. I changed the ISO, making the camera more sensitive to light. To correct this, I need to add additional exposure to my first images to make sure they are all the same correct exposure. First, I find the image where my ISO changed from 400 to 800, number 5019. I go into develop mode and move the exposure up by 0.9. I tried this several times, but the gain on the sensor is not 100%, so this is more of a manual adjustment. I search for the final image with ISO 400, number 5008. And synchronize the settings with number 5019. Next, I move from number 5008 to 5007, where the ISO was 100. This time, I will add 2.65 additional stops of exposure. Then, we will synchronize number 5007 with the remainder of the time-lapse images. To create the multiple suns exposures, we will export these as JPEGs at 96% and open in Photoshop using Load Images from Stack. We're going to speed up this process as Photoshop loads the layers. Once they have loaded, I will select all but the first layer and change the blend mode to lighten. As you can see, this created a more unique image, which I call a blend. To save this, we will press Ctrl, Command, Shift, and E to create a new layer with the blend in place. We will turn this layer off for the next image. To create the sequence of suns, we will turn off all of the layers and only selectively put layers back on. The numbers we're going to put back on are 54, 31, 9, 87, 64, 41, and 18. This creates a new image, a sequence of setting suns, a rather unique image in my opinion. We will also save this as its own layer by pressing Ctrl, Command, Shift, and E. Now we will remove all layers except the one we were after and the ones we created. You can see by comparing them the different effects they have. After saving the layers individually, we will move to Lightroom to do edits on the image I was going for, the sun directly behind the tower. In Lightroom, we are going directly to photo number 5031. First, I will crop in so we can see more of the details in the tower. It's important to center the sun as well. Next, I work on basic exposure, highlights, shadows, and contrast. I prefer to lower highlights, raise whites and blacks, and keep contrast so the details are shown. I also prefer to add a little clarity to give the image some punch. That is the final image. Thank you for watching this tutorial. Please feel free to subscribe for more content like this.